So the evacuation, as you can see from the footage, that was actually with American help. And then those people brought to Taiwan. Then the Chiang Kai-shek kind of arranged with the American government that Jinmen and Mazu, these two offshore islands, should be defended properly, and that was actually the truth. But the People's Republic was not happy, not satisfied with this fact that there were actually two offshore islands under Taiwanese control, and certainly there was movement, there was trial that the PRC tried to liberate these two islands again. So there was actually the second crisis of Taiwan Strait. And here you can see some of the Taiwanese troops were actually captured by the Chinese troops and sent back to mainland China, as you can see from here. And in Taiwan, there was actually a huge and serious memorial service for those who died in the Battle of Yijiangshan. Chiang Kai-shek himself attended this service. And you can see here that people were actually evacuated from Dachen Island. That the small boat was waiting for them and brought them to the American ships. And there was actually the picture of the Dachen people left Dachen Island for Taiwan. And they were actually settled down in Taiwan in different villages. As you can see, there should be over 20,000 of them, and they were spread into different villages. Like this one is actually a small village in Hsinchu, and this was actually Jiang Jingguo who visited them. And interestingly, was actually the culinary habits there on Dachen Island is somehow different. And those people from Dachen could actually make a living by making some speciality of their hometown, including this kind of sticky rice cake, right? Nian Gao and so on. So in different areas, you can still find this special food of Dachen, and they have a special type of fish that was also very famous. So if you check on the Google, you just type in Dachen food, you can see a lot of tips where to go and where to guide further. And after the retreat of Dachen Island in 1955, then the communists aimed at the Jinmen again. So the acquisition of the islands of Zhejiang encouraged the PLA to advance into Fujian, including Mazu and Jinmen. Those were actually the most important strongholds of Chiang Kai-shek's army, who also served as the reminder of Taiwan's stability. And therefore, the Chinese government certainly would like to liberate these two islands, whereas while the American government assured over and over again to the Taiwanese people that they will support Taiwan by defending these two islands and to hinder the Chinese intentions. So on the 23rd of August 1958, however, the Chinese started a new wave of attack. They used artillery to bomb at Jinmen, and this is called the 823 bombardment, or the 823炮战. the 23rd of August bombardment. And the Taiwanese certainly returned fire, and this warfare actually lasted for several months. First of all, it was kind of a non-stop bombarding, and then gradually the fire eased up, while the Chinese realized that the American government was actually very decisive about assuring the Taiwanese their support by sending troops, by providing the munitions, and by giving the Taiwanese over and over again the assurance of their support, morally as well as materially. And during that, say, after the outbreak of the war, the Navy and the Air Force were also engaged. So, as you can see, the fighters, the Taiwanese fighters, were actually equipped or updated or re-equipped by the American government. This was actually the fighter F-86. That was actually the most advanced airplane, and they were actually used during the war, and a lot of pilots were actually trained again in the States, and the air battle was actually very serious, and the number of casualty was actually huge. Over 1,000 of the Taiwanese servicemen were killed, including 3 deputy commanders of GET. They were actually killed on the spot, right at the first day of the bombardment. And those were actually the shells used. These were actually the American supply used by the Taiwanese, and these small ones were actually used by the PLA. As you can see, they are small, but the quantity decided. And as you see, in Jiangshan, they also use this strategy, like shooting massively, and the land was actually turned over and over again. And when the Taiwanese successfully defended GET, they erected some kind of monuments there. This one, for example, erected in 1981, in memory of a general, Liu Yuzhang, who was actually in charge of the defense then. At that stage, there was another troop, that Chinese troop from Burma and from Thailand. This is another chapter in the 1950s. Well, some of the troops who fought on mainland China didn't come to Taiwan with Chiang Kai-shek, because they were located in the southwest of China, in the mountainous area. So therefore, they couldn't fight over the Chinese or the PLA. Then they decided to move deeper and heading towards the Indo-China Peninsula, Indo-China. So they fled first of all to Burma, and then continued their war against China. They used the guerrilla warfare, and they were actually very successful in the jungles. But because of the distance, the Taiwanese couldn't kind of provide any kind of supplies to this army, and therefore the shortage hindered the soldiers to continue to fight. Well, some of them tried to settle down in northern part of Thailand, and some of them still remained in Burma. and they actually received some kind of aid. And sometimes the Taiwanese troops actually sent generals or military advisors to this area to help those people to offer any kind of resistance against the Chinese. But the presence of the presence actually was actually in violation of international law, and therefore Soviet Union brought up this issue to the UN. By that stage, the Republic of China was still a member of the UN, and the United States decided, the United Nations decided to evacuate those troops from Burma, and they discussed with the Thai government, and therefore they were provided with a small land in Chiang Mai. Have you been to Chiang Mai? Or the northern part of, there was actually still a settlement or a colony dwelled by those Chinese soldiers. They still speak Chinese, and they still receive, say, textbooks from Taiwan for a long time, and they was in need of the Taiwanese teachers. They depend on Taiwanese to send teachers to help them with the education, and I think these kind of cooperation still continued. But there is a big problem that they don't have any kind of identities. They don't have any kind of travel documents. Some of them managed to get a fake passport to come to Taiwan. The so-called fake passport was actually provided by the, officially or unofficially, by the Thai government. The Taiwan wished to get rid of these people, give them a passport, which will never allow them to return to Thailand. And when they come to Taiwan, their passport was not actually recognized, and they were permitted to land, but they won't be able to receive a Taiwanese ID or nationality, and they became some kind of, we call it the human balls, like you know the situation of the. There's a film played by Tom Hanks. What? Yeah. Kind they were pushed back and forth, but no country will actually accept them. And these were actually kind of tolerated by the government in Taiwan. They can stay, but they won't get a nationality, and without ID, they cannot get job, they cannot get the insurance. And there is a movement of the petition of their own rights. I think only recently the government decided to grant them with the ID, and they could actually settle down in Taiwan. This is a very sad story, and these people actually, the situation was very similar to those in Dacheng, Jiangsan, or Quemoy, but somehow the developments different. And here you can see that when people were actually moved to Taiwan after those newcomers, well, we have newcomers coming to Taiwan in 1949, and we have even the newer comers from mainland China after 1949. Those who arrived in Taiwan much later, then they will be called so-called 义士, the righteous person or people, who will be settled down, always called 忠贞, the loyal village, right? The people who are loyal to the Taiwanese government. And actually you can see that in their villages, you can always see a lot of national flags, and most of them was really the firm supporters to the KMT government. Well, 1953, some of them arrived in Taiwan. They settled down in villages specially arranged for them. This is one, for example, we can see these two characters, 忠贞, right? Loyalty, loyal. This is Zhongzhen village, and in many cases they have Chiang Kai-shek starting there as their symbol. And this is actually the settlement in northern part of Thailand. not far away from Chiang Mai. There is a place in Chinese called Mei Si Le. In Thai, it's called Sadikiri. And this settlement was actually built by the Chinese, owned by the anti-communist army, which were actually isolated, and they have to be self-sufficient. And these villages sometimes cause trouble as well, because one of the means to make a living was actually to produce cocaine, to produce these kind of drugs. And you know the so-called the Golden Triangle, right? And this business was actually controlled by such people. And when the offspring wanted to leave the place and to find a better settlement in the cities, it was actually impossible for them because they have no identities or travel documents. Okay. Yeah.
What language do they speak in that?
Nowadays they speak Thai, but they privately they only speak Chinese to each other, and the Chinese actually from with the accent of Yunnan. Yeah, I remember when I was in university, some of them actually managed to come to Taiwan for further study, and those people they have a strong accent, all right. And actually quite a lot of them were actually Muslims, because in Yunnan area you have a lot of Muslims. And when they finish their study, some of them choose to stay and some of them choose to go back. But the situation worsened. The Thai government refused to grant them any kind of national identity or passport, and therefore they had to stay there. And they still speak Chinese, all right. There is a village in Zhonghe. Have you been to Zhonghe? There is a treaty called Huaxin Street. The streets there, all the inhabitants were actually from Yunnan area, from this area. If you want to get more details about them, just go to Zhonghe Huaxin Street here. And here we come back to Taiwan. The Chiang Kai-shek still wished to fight back to mainland China, and therefore to maintain a strong army was actually one of his goals. And this situation lasted even when he passed away, and therefore the budget spent on the national defense was really, really high. Right? If we don't have this kind of military expense, then Taiwanese can live a much better life. Like according to the Constitution, there should be a minimum guarantee of say 15% of the budget be spent on education or cultural affairs. But the number is actually far below, because most of the money was actually spent in military purposes. Like you have a strong army, you have huge money spent on purchasing say weapons, fighters, and the price that we pay for an air fighter actually would be 3 times than the Israeli paid for, right? The same fighter. Or boat from the United States. I think the Koreans, Japanese can buy the price, or should pay say twice of the amount of the Israelis, and we have to pay much more. Right, the same thing we said at different prices, and Taiwanese are really deprived of.